This is not only a story of those 88 people, but this is a story of so many of us. My name is Anastasia Gajkowska, and when I left my abusive relationship, I wanted to create a movie, a film, a documentary where I interview not only survivors, but thrivers. I mean, people who left abusive relationships and they're really thriving now. I flew to Hollywood to learn the art of making films. I asked 8 questions. This documentary is a sample of combined stories. I use my laptop camera, my phone camera. Many recordings you will see in this documentary were filmed by survivors in their own home. All our participants decided to share their story voluntarily. 88 stories, one soul, one voice, one calling for the whole humanity. Hi, welcome back. In this Exposé episode, we are going to talk about different types of abuse. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, digital abuse, and sexual abuse. Enjoy.
We had kind of the American dream, right? We had a house and 2 kids and 2 cars and a job. And on the outside, the world looked great. You know, everyone, we were like this perfect family. And on the inside, it was a completely different experience.
And steadily, it got worse and worse and worse.
Most people don't understand emotional abuse. Even a lot of therapists and doctors don't understand it, especially when it comes from a narcissist. So when we have a girl or a male that goes into a therapist's office and says, I'm having problems in our marriage, they're not being treated as victims. They're being treated as people who are just not getting along with their husbands. A lot of times they're not believed, they're not heard, they're not validated, which just compounds their confusion even further. Because now they really don't know if they're wrong or right, even though it feels terrible, because nobody is telling them the answers, answering the questions that they have, and they're actually treating them like they're participating in the abuse, when really what it is they're emotionally abused and they're trying to react to their abuse and they don't know how to deal with it.
Domestic abuse was such a strong word that I wouldn't have ever thought I was in an abusive relationship, and only through time and education and the internet, you start to realize it actually is all of those things.
Domestic violence isn't something that's just physical. The emotional warfare and the mental drama that you go through is just as bad, because those scars end up staying with you long after a physical bruise heals, right?
So if you find yourself in this weird cycle all of a sudden, where things are really hot and heavy, and then all of a sudden there's some kind of shift in the relationship and the person starts changing the way they see you, that is a huge red flag that you're dealing with somebody that's not healthy. It's a cycle of abuse.
It's always the cycle of love bombing or hoovering, devaluation, and then the discard, because we can't keep up with their unrealistic perception of reality.
Our most core fundamental human need is to feel accepted within a tribe, which is why most attachment dysfunction come from feeling rejected from your tribe. And at the core of all human experience is the need for safety. What makes that child feel safe with his mother is that the mother tries to attune and respond to the child's needs.
You are someone who never felt seen. You've learned that in order to survive, you have to focus on other people to feel safe. So you're externally focused. Lots of times, those of us who have a lot of empathy didn't experience a lot of empathy in childhood. We give everybody empathy because we don't want other people to feel the way we felt as children.
People who tend to be the target of a narcissist are people who often are highly empathetic.
Let's say we've come from a physically abusive system, but this new partner is just verbally abusive, right? Like, that can feel better. Well, at least that person doesn't, physically hurt me.
Emotional abuse means manipulation and degradation, like gaslighting.
So I didn't know what emotional abuse was. And emotional abuse is really hard to wrap your head around because it's very difficult to detect unless you're exposed to it or educated on the topic. And so I didn't even know I was being emotionally abused. I just thought I was in a bad marriage and I didn't know how to fix it.
Emotional abuse is about power and control, and it's about dominance, right? It's about power over. It could look like being told what to do all the time, right? It could be isolation, like starting to move you away from your friends and family members because, at the end of the day, the reason they're doing it is because they don't want the friends and family members influencing you away from the person who's trying to control you. But they will say, oh, they're just bad for you, or they're not really good for you, or they don't have your best interests at heart. Emotional abuse is any systematic wearing or cutting down of the self, right? You come into a relationship with what you feel like is a strong self, and over time it just gets more and more whittled away until you feel like a shell of yourself. That's emotional abuse. And it a lot of times we talk about it in terms of like putting you down, like, why are you going to wear that, or you look fat, or any of those things, right?
Definitely emotional abuse where your mind is affected is one of the worst. There's no proof as well. If you have a bruise, someone can say, oh, you've got a bruise on your arm, how come? But if you say, they told me that I'm fat, do you think I'm fat? No, my ex said that. They say it like 1,000 times. That voice is playing over and over and over.
I thought I looked really good. And he said to me, you look like a whore. And I said to him, that really hurts my feelings. That's not cool. He's like, oh, you're just too sensitive. Like, really, get over it. You can't take a joke. I was kidding. I was completely kidding. If you can't take a joke, what's wrong with you?
And sometimes he would just rage, just inches from my face, and tell me all of the horrible things that still wake me up in the middle of the night. I don't really think you're that scared. And then it's, I'm sorry. And then after a while, it wasn't even I'm sorry anymore. I just want to be mad. Why can't I be mad?
Psychological abuse inflicts mental anguish through manipulation and coercion, like threatening self-harm to manipulate a partner.
And then, he would tell me things like, you'll never leave me because, I made you. We made you what you are today. If it wasn't for me and my mother, you wouldn't be where you are. So don't even think about leaving. So a lot of times when we would go home for the holidays, I would hate it because he would always want to, or he would say, we're staying by my mama, and she already has everything ready. This is where we're going to be until it's time for us to leave. And I thought that was so unfair because my family lives in Louisiana also. And he was like, they know where we live, where my mom lives, let them come over there by her. And it was just, the control was from him and it was from his mother. Because I remember in counseling, one time the counselor said his mother is a puppeteer, a puppet master, and she is calling the shots because they would have discussions about things. Instead of he and I discussing it as a couple, like buying furniture or a car or anything like that, he would already have had the conversation with his mother. Nothing was something that I had chosen. Everything was about what they wanted and how they wanted it to be. And I just had to get in line.
He was not letting me do things that I used to do, like the things I love to do. I love to teach fitness. He wanted me to stay home, and then when I try to go do at least grocery shopping, he's already asking me when I'm going back. And then that was just like he was preventing me to do the things I enjoy. You should do this and do this. You're not making money. Do let me work then. Well, you're not making enough. You're not gonna make enough. So it's always like belittle and that I am just an immigrant and that it all these things. I said okay, and I was just like observing that the things that makes me happy is a waste of time and it's a waste of money.
He wouldn't let me feed myself. He goes, no girl of mine feeds herself. I feed you. So he was like feeding me. And I thought, my God, that's sexy. That's incredible. And I got sucked in. He was crying, oh, I don't want you to leave. So I never seen that side of a man. He called me every day. He sent me letters every day. I wasn't allowed to eat, by the way. I wasn't allowed to eat my full meal. And he pointed out the dessert. He said, oh, there is a lemon meringue pie. Look at that lemon meringue pie. And I go, wow, lemon meringue pie. And I picked it up and put it in the cart. He went nuts. And this little old lady walks by. She goes, dear, she heard the whole thing. She goes, is that your husband? I go, no. She goes, oh, when he becomes your husband, it'll be 100 times worse.
It was constant. Who you with? What you doing? Who you with? What you doing? No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. And the best part about it was I did not obviously be with anybody that whole time. And when I came home, when I came back from Australia, I did try to break up with him because all my friends were like, enough's enough. You can't. This isn't healthy. I was like, okay. And I broke up with him. This was the first time. And he was just very, very good at that. I'm sorry. I know that I'm insecure. I won't do it again. My ex cheated on me. She hurt me. And it just carried on. And I actually found out while I was in Australia, this was months going forward, I actually found out that he'd been dating someone while I was in Australia, while he was calling me saying that I was sleeping with X, Y, and Z. And he was on dates with other people. And I laugh about it now, but Muggins over here, when she found that out, of course she took him back and took him back and took him back. Yeah, the red flags were in my face from get-go, but I just had hope. And he also said that he'd been hurt so much in the past, so I really did sympathize for him. I got it. I understood it.
This particular morning, he had become very irate that I hadn't checked in with him, and he showed up at my door about 15 minutes later and barged through the front door and went into my room and started acting very paranoid, looking under the bed, behind the curtain, in the closet, accusing me that I had been with somebody else, that I had stayed home to be with somebody else. And the more I tried to reassure him that that wasn't the case, the more irate he got and red in the face. And it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because, these things were building over a period of time. But again, I missed them. So this behavior was like, whoa, where's this coming from? And so he came up to me as I sat on the edge of the bed and he said, I knew you were too good to be true. And then slapped me so hard that I saw stars and then stormed out. And so I'm left there with my face hurting and trying to figure out, what did I do to make this happen? Like, could I have done things better? Should I have called him to let him know that I was staying home? And then I caught myself and I was like, no, I told the truth. Like, he should not have slapped me, and I'm done with him. And at that point I thought I was done, and I didn't take any of his calls until like the following Sunday. He showed up at my house when I wasn't home with a bouquet of purple flowers, my favorite color at the time, and said, left these 24 roses. And then when I came home and I saw them, I turned on my phone and there were a slew of messages from him saying how sorry he was, how apologetic he was. He wanted a chance to explain. And seeing these flowers, hearing the voicemails, reading the card that he had left with the flowers, "I'm sorry, I love you, I miss you, call me." I called him back. And when I called him back, he was very apologetic. It sounded like he was very tearful on the other end. And I accepted that apology. Even with that apology, he diminished some of the blame about what had happened and placed some of it on me. He said, "I love you so much that you made me act that way. The thought of you being with somebody else just drives me insane." And so, it's you. It's you for me that makes me act. And so I took that. What else do you do at you're 21, and it's like, okay, maybe I should have called him. Maybe I went about this wrong. So I took that apology, and that then turned into almost 2 years of verbal, emotional, and even more physical abuse until I reached my breaking point. So, during the relationship, it was very heavy with the jealousy, the paranoia, the no trust in me. I was always asked to be here at a certain time. If I didn't show up, he would think that I was doing something with somebody else. I couldn't stay too long on the phone with girlfriends. Any guy friends that I had, they were null at this point because, why are you talking to guys? Like, they're going to try to pick you up and flirt with you. Why are you talking so long to your girlfriend? She doesn't like me. She's gonna try to woo you away from me, and I don't like her. She's single. She's gonna try to get you to get with another guy. I mean, it was just a level of distrust that I always tried to circumvent with better behavior. So, stop talking too long on the phone. Wear my skirt a little longer. Wear my hair a different way, not talk to guy friends. And so it was all of me making, compromises to make sure that I didn't do more to harm our relationship.
I was gaslit by a past partner who had cheated on me, and I, being psychic, would have all of these dreams that he had cheated on me, and I literally was tortured by them for 3 years. And every time we would talk about the dream and we would analyze them together, he would always bring it back to, well, you were sexually abused as a child. So that's gaslighting. Instead of him taking responsibility and saying, I know why you're having these dreams, and let me tell you what happened, and I'm so sorry, which he eventually did.
It's because he wasn't even in town. He was in Washington, D.C., and he had made this elaborate plan to kill himself. He had taken $400 out of our bank account. And I kept calling and calling. I was like, where are you? What's happening? And then he calls me that he swallowed so many pills, but he changed his mind. So we made him throw it up. After that, it didn't matter what happened. I just didn't want him to die.
The mind games that he was playing, tracking my mileage on my car just because I would take the car a couple of miles up in town to go get milk and bread, etc. He would literally write the mileage down before I got into the car, and then he would run right out and check the mileage on it after to make sure that I didn't deviate my path and that I wasn't out cheating, that I wasn't out trying to report him. I was not allowed to go places unaccompanied, usually without him. So if I did, my mileage was tracked.
Isolation, starting to move you away from your friends and family members because, at the end of the day, the reason they're doing it is because they don't want the friends and family members influencing you away from the person who's trying to control you. But they will say, oh, they're just bad for you, or they're not really good for you, or they don't have your best interests at heart.
When he would get mad at me for talking to my mom and my family, like wanting to spend time with anybody that wasn't him or him approved. That was my first red flag, when he started isolating me even more than I already was by moving to Iowa, away from Florida, away from my family, away from my friends, where I didn't know anybody. He started isolating me and getting mad when I would talk to people from Florida.
I would call during my lunch, or if I was on break, just to be like, hey, what's going on? I wouldn't get an answer. And, sometimes I'd make it off a little earlier than expected. And, I would come home and he wouldn't be there. And he wouldn't answer his phone. And, around the time that I would normally be off from work, or he would know that I would be, soon to arrive, he would show up and he'd be like, oh, you're off. And I'm like, yeah, I tried to call you, what was going on? Oh, well, I was on the phone with my sister, or, I was talking to my mom, or, I had walked up to the gas station and my phone died. And I'm like, but we're sitting here with a charger all day. Like, what do you mean? So those were the first red flags that I began to notice. It just seemed to be, I couldn't prove it because my primary focus was work. But it just seemed to be a bit of dishonesty going on. So I'm thinking inside my head, I don't believe you. I really feel like you're full of it, but I don't really have the time nor the energy to investigate this. So I'm just going to believe what you're saying as far as, your phone died and that you love me and there's nothing to worry about. I only got a job, help him get a job and everything. And so, he began to get back on his feet and make money. And so he began to become very, like I said, arrogant at that point. Once he started making his own money and his own means of income. And then it got to the point to where it was like, I'll get off from work and I don't see you till the next day type of scenario, or I don't see you for several hours. And, I'll call you, hey, what's going on? Where are you? And you cuss me out, you get mad, or, you come home and you just, you just intentionally start an argument with me, so that way you'll have a reason to storm out of the house and leave and not come home for a few days.
I have recordings of him recording himself, giving me permission to take his car, to take his kids, and to get the fuck out. Just go. You can hear me begging in the background. You don't understand because I'm right here. The intervention's gonna happen in 2 days. He stole my shoes. My shoes were gone. I fled my home without shoes.
Spiritual abuse involves exploiting religious beliefs to control or harm others. I was 19 and the person who I was with back then was convincing me to go to their church because that church was supposed to be closer to God, and any other church is just bad and I will go to hell if I don't go to that particular church. So that person was trying to make me feel guilty for not obeying his idea of what I should believe in. And I grew up as a Catholic, and I went to Catholic church for 18 years of my life. So I just remember being so confused when this person was bringing Bible to my hands and telling me, that God sent him to change my life. And he literally said that, oh, God sent me to change your life. And if you reject me, you will reject God. So I am this angel and you are full of demons and I came here to pray for you and all my tribe in Africa is praying for you. And if you don't open your heart, if you don't go to this church and do everything what I tell you to do, you will go to hell. So that's a huge, spiritual abuse and as well psychological abuse. Because we can see how this person was trying to use the authority of first, big church name, and saying that, you need to obey everything what I say because I'm part of this church. Then we have also diminishing of my own system beliefs. That person didn't want to listen what I feel it's right for me. So we had also, gaslighting, where this person is telling me, no, your reality is wrong. The only one reality and true is what I think.
He picked up, I was over at his house, and he had picked up a quarter, threw it across the kitchen, and it went into this big vodka bottle that he had. And this vodka bottle was thick. The glass on it was, it was probably about that tall, and the glass was super thick, and it shattered by this quarter that he threw. And that I said, I'm leaving, I'm gonna go. And he said, if you leave, this relationship is over.
Physical abuse includes any form of body harm, from hitting to pushing.
He had already told me that he was completely comfortable killing me. I did not have any kind of safety or comfort.
Is tonight the night that he kills me?
I would go to work black and blue. Next time we get into an argument, I could die. The last night we got into an argument, he was on top of me, he was choking me. And I didn't think I was going to get out alive because he was choking me so hard.
Shortly after I found out I was pregnant with our first child, my ex-husband had gotten very upset about something and shoved me onto the bed. And at first I realized, I was like, oh man, I really don't like this. This isn't okay. And I was like, well, maybe it was just a one-time thing though.
And so that's not so easy to get out of because we're in denial. We no longer trust our instincts. We no longer trust the way we feel. We've ended up defending the narcissist to our friends who are like, you're losing yourself, girl. And the narcissist has convinced us that if our friends talk to us that way, we need to cut them out of our lives because they're jealous of our relationship or they're trying to get in between us. And so now I push my friends away and I end up defending the narcissist. So I'm just getting lower and lower and lower.
Financial abuse, restricting access to resources like controlling finances in a relationship.
He used to take all of our money and spend it on drugs.
I was financially abused, so he left me in about £30,000 worth of debt. So I'd straight away become a single mother I was working full time, but obviously I had all this debt that I then was left with that I had to pay.
Right when we got the place, he made sure all the bills were in my name, and then he just quit. And then I was stuck with him for 3.5 years not working, and I was the one that was supporting him.
Part of my past relationship was about financial abuse, where I can give you some behaviors which I experienced, which we can include into financial abuse. So control of my bank account. So that individual wanted to know exactly how much I have on my bank account. And each time I made more than 10,000, I had to give him 10%, just because of he felt like he was the one who shared with me the idea of saving money, so he has the right to have 10% of each of 10,000 I made. Secondly, I wasn't allowed to quit my job due to the money I was making. It was really a good money-making job, and he felt like I shouldn't quit a job which gives so much money. And this way he also, was making sure his financial status was doing well, because I was by that time I was paying him for rent, I was paying him for the coaching sessions, he was charging me for, plus I was paying fees for not fulfilling his desires, like washing a floor. If I didn't wash the floor, I had to pay $60, or if I didn't do certain duty I supposed to do, I had to pay him a fee. Digital abuse misuses technology for control or harassment, such as monitoring someone's online activity without consent.
Because he had hooked up my phone and my computer and everything, and it was all backing up to his Google account. He knew everything, everywhere I went, every site I visited, every person I talked to, every plan that I had, everything. I didn't know you could do that. I had to burn emails I've had since high school. My daughter's email that I created for her when she was born. Because every time you log into them, they start backing up any device that they are attached to. Even if I go in and I say, no, don't back up my photos, if I put those email accounts on my phone, they will back them up and he'll see everything. He knew everything I was planning.
Sexual abuse means any unwanted sexual activity, including coercion or assault.
I had to go to bed at a certain time, and I had to have sex with him so many times a day because that's what he needed.
We were climbing into bed. We had gone to a wine tasting party, and he said, "Sweet Pea, I think I've done something that's going to make you really mad." And he showed me an exchange that he had been having with another couple, where he offered me up to have sex with them without my knowledge and without my consent. And I said, oh, no, I'm not mad. I'm livid. It was expletive filled. Get out of my house. And I, the kids and I debate this and we laugh about it. I don't know whose voice I heard, but in my one ear, I heard, shh, just be quiet. Just be quiet right now. So instead of launching a full tirade and interesting, he's still playing the, of course this is you card. He's like, oh, I knew you were going to be upset about this. Really, you're going to be upset about this? Yes, I am. You gave these people my picture. You told them where I lived. You told them what I did for a living. You told them where I was going to be when I traveled so that they could go check me out. Yes, I'm mad about this. I'm really mad about this. Until that, the voice was, just go ahead. And he said, I'm leaving my computer out. If you want to, I don't think I changed the passcode. See what you have. And he ended up falling asleep. That's another trick of an abuser, right? Go ahead and check everything out. There's nothing there. And you think to yourself, well, he wouldn't say that if there was really something there. So I'm sure it's just me, because you've been conditioned to think it's just you. And so when the offer is made of go ahead and check it all out, there's nothing, you think, well, if there was really something, he wouldn't leave his computer out, and he wouldn't. And how many times had he done something like that? Go ahead and check it out. It's legitimate. And I never did, because I believed him. And because, well, that's just you, Caroline. You're just being emotional. You're just looking at this the wrong way. I did that night. Got his computer. For 8 years, he had been sending people messages, giving them my picture. For 8, all of the emails started out with, my girlfriend has no idea I'm doing this. I found that he belonged to a group that taught men how to drug their girlfriends or their wives and then arrange situations where other men could come over and rape them while the husband or the boyfriend watched. That was his extracurricular activity. I found out that while he presented himself to me to be a monogamous heterosexual, he was actually involved in group sex with men and with women in our homes when I traveled, when he traveled. I discovered 8 years that from the very moment that we met, he had been doing this. And I also discovered there were nights I did not remember. Nights that I only found out about because they were on his computer. Nights where he would say, get dressed up, get completely dressed up. I'm taking you out to a fancy meal. We're going to celebrate us. We're awesome. You're incredible. Get dressed up. And he'd take me out to my favorite steak place. And meanwhile, he would have conversed with 3 other people to be at the same place to check me out, to be able to facilitate what could be done to me. Again, all without my knowledge and all without my consent. So between me running to the bathroom to vomit and coming back to the computer and finding more, and think about that, had I bought into his usual, check it out, you're not going to find anything. Had I not gotten up to look, I would never know. I would never know. So I couldn't figure out, he uses a Mac. I could not figure out how to work a Macintosh computer. I didn't know how to print things off. So I just started taking screenshots, pictures with my cell phone of the emails. And because I wasn't sure what all I was seeing and what I was uncovering, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm crying and I'm vomiting and I'm hoping to God he doesn't wake up, then I couldn't get everything. I mean, it was 8 years of history. So I took as much as I could. I put his computer back and I crawled back in bed. And the next day when he went to work I just imploded. I imploded and I started making lists and I thought, I don't know how I'm going to escape him, but I'm going to have to figure it out, because at that point I didn't know who all he had set me up for. I didn't know. I was afraid to eat or drink anything in my house. I was afraid to eat or drink anything he gave me. I wasn't sure. I ended up in the hospital. My heart ended up stopped beating for, I think, 21 seconds. And they had to end up surgically implanting a battery that monitored me and monitored my heart, because, again, we didn't know, was I so stressed out or had he given me something to harm me that made my heart act odd.
There's a fragmentation of the body, and this especially applies for sexual abuse, by the way. There's a complete disconnection from the physical body because it's our protection. How can we possibly be connected in the body if our beautiful, sensitive, fragile, highly exquisite body is being treated like that? Of course, there's a fragmentation and disconnection.
So let's talk about rape. And I'm in this position of having my hands on my hips because I feel like anytime somebody says rape, we feel threat, especially we as a woman, we feel threat in our stomach, in our belly. We don't want to talk about it, we don't want to listen, it hurts. Okay, I get it. And the story I have to share, it's probably a story which many of you experience as well when you have been victimized and obeying somebody who was maybe older than you, who was using his age and authority or status to make you feel safe, who maybe groom you, and later on after you trusting them fully, completely, they make a move. And that move It was totally planned from the very beginning. And in my story, it was sexual assault when this person asked me to take my underwear off and sit next to him. And I totally froze. I literally probably couldn't say my name. I just couldn't believe that this person I trusted so much and I treated him like my father was asking me to take my underwear. So it was, I think, what it felt like was a betrayal. But I did everything what that person wanted me to, just because of the cognitive dissonance. Like I couldn't believe my own eyes. And after all, that person asked me, I asked that person what it was. And he said, nothing, I don't know. I just feel like hugging you. So, back then I was a virgin, and it was my very first time with somebody who never asked, who demanded and make me feel like I had to do whatever he asked me for. Because before that, he prepared me to be really submissive to his actions and rules. And he trained me to know that if I don't do something, there's a punishment. So you can see here how that dynamic works. And what I really want to say is that most people believe that rape is something what, harms your body. And I believe that it harms your soul, your spirit, your energetics. So that's why I believe by speaking it out, we release that part of trauma. We transmute that into a message of hope. And that can really have a huge impact on our own healing and liberty, freedom, and on someone else's healing. And yes, it feels frightening because we have been conditioned to be silent and don't talk about it. So the moment we speak about rape, it's like we are opening doors for another women and men who have been inappropriately touched without their consent. And if you are someone who experienced that, I would like you to use this safe number and share with somebody who is qualified to give you more information on how you can get help if you need it.
One counselor, she was pointing out to me all the different ways that I was living in an abusive marriage. That was the first time I had ever heard the word marital rape. First time ever. I was in my 30s and I was so unaware. I had the mindset, the belief that because I was married, attached, not married, because it turned out our marriage was never legal, because I had that mindset, well, he's the man. I'm supposed to be submissive to him. I let him do whatever he wanted to, against my wishes. If I didn't want to have sex, it didn't matter. He did anyway, as well as would cheat. And what brought it to the end was it wasn't far after they started talking to me about marital rape.
Most people think that physical violence is the only type of abuse and is the only type of abuse that is recognized by immigration law. However, there are other types of abuse that are non-physical and they are recognized. It could be emotional, psychological, power and control, financial, isolation. is one of them. If your spouse or abuser doesn't let you to talk to other people and justify it with something else. Oh, we don't have time to go see your family member. Let's go out with my friends, not your friend. Or even survivors working, they don't have access to the money that they are earning. They have to hand over to the abuser. Sexual abuse. I'm gonna call immigration on you to deport you. Actually, no one can deport a person, only immigration judge. Knowledge is power. And that's my personal mission.
We are the friend of someone who's trying to leave an abusive relationship. The more I tell that person to leave, the more anxious that person's going to be. And now they're insecure even more. So what happens to them psychologically is they default to the person that they think makes them feel secure, which is the narcissist. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we educate ourselves and we know as much as we can about this person's fear of what's going to happen next. And let's face it, there are narcissists out there that are physically violent. Like our fear of being hurt is real. Our fear of a narcissist hurting our children is real. Our fear of a narcissist destroying our reputation, destroying our business, it's real. Our fear of being financially ruined, it's all real. So our fears are not invalid. In fact, they're valid. But we stay because we're trying to avoid that potential. And so if a friend comes along and says, oh, you're in a bad situation, you should leave him, I'm only going to freak out even more and secure myself with him even more because that's what makes me feel safe. Because if you try to validate a narcissistic abuse survivor too quickly, they won't believe you. Because the narcissist has conditioned them to believe that they're the narcissist. They're the problem. And so you have to be very gentle when dealing with a narcissistic abuse survivor so that they can start sharing things about their experience, in their time. And I think sometimes as friends of narcissistic abuse survivors, we just want to hoorah and pat them on the back. They're coming out of a fog. It doesn't feel natural to suddenly be validated after so many decades and weeks and months of being invalidated.
A wszystkie kobiety, które dzisiaj słyszeliście, są dowodem na to, że ta zmiana jest warta tego, żeby ją podjąć i warta jest tego, żeby o siebie zawalczyć.
This was an experience that actually helped us learn how to love ourselves better.
Everything isn't happening to you, everything's happening for you. We don't have to get trapped in the past story. Instead of believing that we're broken and wounded and nobody will ever love me, we need to shift that perspective and say, no, I'm a warrior. I survived the unthinkable. And now I am stronger and better. I have gone through it and I've come out even better than before.
Someone else out there is living our life. Someone else out there is living the life that all of these survivors and thrivers have escaped right here, right now. You can pick up any newspaper. You can go online to any news outlet and you'll hear about mostly women, some men, but mostly women who are killed by their boyfriends, who are killed by the children of their father. You hear it all the time. And so there's someone out there right now that is living your survivor story. And when you start speaking, you give that person hope. So suddenly, with the hope, they start to have this idea of choice. And that is really possible. That's where you can really help someone create great impact in that person's life, and if they stay on the path, they can then in turn create great impact in their life. They can end generations of trauma. They can end generations of codependency, generations of women and men picking the wrong partners and staying and not understanding what's going on. And I think that is so encouraging. And that's why you do what you do, because you want to encourage people to awaken and to take ownership over their life in a powerful way and to tell their story.
You just don't know what people have gone through in this life to live, to stay alive, to breathe, to not cry to hide their laughter because someone else doesn't want them to laugh. Someone says, oh, well, blah, blah, blah has happened to me. Immediately take a breath and say, what if that were me? How could I handle that?
Your reality can change. Who you are can evolve. You need to focus on love to access the reality of who you are. You need to embrace love in your life.
But that's what we're missing in this universe. It's love. And that is the antidote to hate, crime, pain, depression, anxiety, and hurting each other.
Thank you so much for watching this episode, and please join us with the next one, which is all about the aha moment. The moment when all those 88 thrivers decided to leave the abusive relationship they were in. See you soon. Bye. Could you do me a favor and share this episode with at least 2 of your friends? Thank you. Remember, together we can make a difference. If this episode resonates with you, please go to exposenetwork.com. You will find the link below, and we would love to learn more about you and your story. You can thrive and you can be happy after an abusive relationship. Do you have a story to share?
It's night in the city, and I'm on my way back home. Humming on my favorite ditty, swinging like Natalie Cole. But then out of the blue, who strolls down the boulevard but you? Your place is closer than mine. Why don't we go there and have some more wine? 'Cause life is for living. Let's see where this all might lead. Let's see where this all might lead. Waking up to a brand new day in between your sheets. Breaking up in the best of ways, and I'm back again on the street. Ooh, but then out of the blue, a wind starts blowing in ways so new. A world more exciting than mine is holding up a great big welcoming sign. Life is for living. Let's see where this all might lead.
So